Teaching the Perennial class today. The first thing I'd like to talk about is what you guys are looking for. So when you go to plan your perennial garden, are you just looking for a few plants? Are you looking to do an entire island bed? Just supplementing what you already have? These things are some of the key points that you want to think about before purchasing any plants. Also, what kind of sun do you get? Does it get sun all day long? Does it get 4 hours of morning sun? Does it get the hot afternoon sun? These are all going to factor into what you're going to purchase and plant. We live in a zone 7 climate. We also have high altitude. So our sunshine is very, very intense. We are also a high desert, which means until right now, we don't really get any moisture at all. Obviously today is not one of those days. There's plenty of humidity in the air. We also have that southwest wind that comes up from March till usually 1/6 time. So hopefully we're out of the winter season and we're going to go into the nice breezes, which we can all tolerate at that point. All these factors kind of determine where you're going to put your plants and how you're going to care for them. Also, I like to tell people to walk around your neighborhood, see what everybody else is growing, what does well, what you like. A lot of people are new to this area, and we don't have the lush gardens that we did back east, or we're not in California where moisture is abundant, the temperature's not so high. So we have to kind of rethink things a little bit to what we're going to plant and how we're going to do it. Do you like hummingbirds and butterflies? Is that kind of the type of garden you want? We have a great environment for those type of plants. So just on two. So these are kind of some of the factors that you also want to think about. Do you want a drought tolerant garden where you don't have to worry about it so much, or do you know you're going to be watering pretty regularly? If you want some lush, you're looking for some cottage type garden. Planting is another thing that you need to take care in doing. I don't know how many people have tried to plant in this area, actually try to dig a hole. It's kind of difficult. So when you are planting anything, you want to plant dig a hole just as deep, and you want to go twice as wide. Wider if you can. The wider it is, the more room it has for the roots to kind of spread out, and it doesn't have to struggle until it gets to that point. I always have a wheelbarrow with me when I go to the landfill, so I can actually just I take out the fill dirt, put it in the wheelbarrow, take out all the big rocks. You don't have to get every pebble that's in there because we have a lot of those. And get rid of the big ones. Put mulch in there. Usually it's 2/3 natural soil to 1/3 mulch. Why don't I want to put some richer dirt in there? These plants need to get used to where we're living. So once it does get out, the root system gets out to where it is, it's ready to go. If you get that hole too rich, you're just going to stay in that little hole and you're not going to get a big, healthy plant. When you backfill your plant, you want to put a little fertilizer in there. You're going to water that area really well, and then use some root and grow. It's a root stimulant to get the fine hair roots going. It also helps with transplant shock, which, depending on the type of year, some plants really have a hard time getting started when it's, especially like June. and this year, July, because it's been so hot and dry. Watering it in, you want to water thoroughly. You want to make sure that whole area is completely wet. So the last thing you want to top off is the root and grow. If it's not completely wet all the way through, that soil that's on the outside is going to leach that root and grow, and it won't settle in on the roots. So anytime you add something to soil, you want to make sure your spot is wet. When you're thinking about perennials, you want to kind of think of all 3 seasons. You want to have spring flowers, you want to have some summer flowers, and you want to have some fall flowers. So the way this nursery works is we bring things in that are blooming, because people don't buy plants that are blooming. Funny thing. So when you're kind of organizing and designing, you want to make sure that you leave a few spaces for the next season when we get new stuff in. One of the biggest errors that you can do is overplanting. I just want it full right now. And when you crowd things in, you're kind of asking for trouble, because if you don't get good airflow, you get diseases. Powdery mildew, black spot, all those type of things will get in there, because they will weaken the plant. It also gives you a haven for pests, aphids, spider mites, thrips, all those things. They like plants that are closed in. It gives them cover. Excuse me. So think about the flowers that you want. Kind of do some research. Look at pictures. Like I said, walk your neighborhoods, see what grows. We do have some flowers that bloom all season long. Autumn sages are one of them. They're also one of the best hummingbird plants out there. The little guys, like that guy, they're always good here. The salvias, the sages, they just are attracted to them. Hummingbirds also like orange, pink, and red flowers. So keep those in mind if you're looking for hummingbirds. Butterflies like plants that have landing pads. So like the rudbeckias, the Shasta daisies, the coreopsis, all those things have a landing pad for them so they can settle. Dividing in the fall, some of your bigger plants, if you have established gardens, fall is a great time to start dividing plants. Irises, peonies, daylilies, all those things can be divided in the fall. So when you go to dig them up, use a sharp shovel. When you get it, most of them are irises, and you usually have a patch. Get your shovel, dig them up. You can actually just cut them apart, or if they're loose, you can kind of wiggle them out, and then replant them in another spot. Irises are one of those things that you want to make sure that you're not planting too deep. If you plant them too deeply, you'll get leaves, but you won't get flowers. Daylilies are kind of the same thing. You want to kind of keep them at the same zone or area that they were when you dug them up. Peonies are kind of the same way, except that you can actually go a little bit deeper on those, but you don't want to put them below the crown. So it's really important on placement for when you go to divide. Some of the other perennials, like coreopsis, you can actually, you're still going to have some of the plants left. So obviously you want to wait a few years before you start dividing, but once you do, you can just take a sharp knife, cut it in half, and put it back into the ground. You always want to wait or have a hole pretty ready for it, because you don't want those roots to dry out, especially if you're just transplanting a regular plant. The rhizomes don't matter so much because they're used to kind of being dried out and then they rehydrate. Here I've got some groupings that I thought were really pretty. The butterfly bush is actually a shrub, but I love the colors that we got out of this. It's paired with some coreopsis, some cornflower, and some Shasta daisies. Most of those are going to bloom in the later midsummer to late fall. Coneflowers are one of those longest blooming flowers out there. They'll bloom on and on and on. This kind of grouping here, this is more of a shade planting. This is an Alberta spruce. They just gave it a little bit of height back here. Alberta spruces only grow about 3 inches a year, so if you want something to kind of stay small or not outgrow your area, these are great plants to put in there. This is a heuchera or corabels. This plant is all about the leaf color. They come in oranges, purples, reds, yellows, lime greens, so it's really pretty. And then they put out a stalk. This is the flower stalk, which to me is not very significant.
What's the name of that plant again?
Heuchera or corabels. And this is just an ivy. All of this stuff is great for the shade. When you are looking at tags in this area, remember that all tags, they print them for the entire country. So when it says full sun, doesn't necessarily mean full sun in Prescott. So we've kind of got the garden center separated into shade plants and sunny plants. If you are unsure or if you have questions, please ask one of us. We're happy to help you with that. Or if you have an area that has a little bit of both, we can kind of help you. Did you have a question? No. Okay. Here I have more of a drought tolerant selection. So these are red hot pokers. They have a spike, which this one has a better spike, but they come in several different colors. Very, very drought tolerant. This is a sedum. This is an autumn joy, and this is autumn charm. Both same type of family member, but this one has some different colors. They do put out a flower in the fall, and the butterflies and bees love these guys. This is actually a really cool mixture. So it's got some blue spruce sedum, autumn joy sedum. This is a stone crop. So it's kind of an all-in-one succulent pot. And it gives you something that's low and more like grass cover. And then our favorite, hens and chicks. This one's called Green Wheel, and it's a little bit smaller than our normal size hen and chicks. And all this stuff is really drought tolerant. Once it's established, maybe twice a week during the hottest, windiest times, but once a week for the most part is going to be all you need. Yes?
How fast
The sedums? He asked how fast this stuff will grow. What I like to say is it's sleep, creep, and leap. So the first year, you're putting down roots, and you're not going to get a ton of growth. The second year is creep, so you'll get some growth, and then the third year is when you really get your push of big growth. And that's kind of the same with pretty much trees, shrubs, and all that. Yes.
Are they going to make it through the winter?
Absolutely, yes. Basically, the term perennial is something that's going to come back year after year. Annuals is something we have to plant annually, and that's kind of like we are zone 7 here, so there are a few annuals that, as you go down towards Phoenix and stuff, that are actually perennial down there. So it just kind of depends on where you're at. This grouping here is another one that's fairly drought tolerant. This one kind of has a little bit of extra texture. This is tick seed, coreopsis, same as that. So there's different species to give you different looks. This one's got the really fine leaves in it. Also has the really pretty yellow and burgundy flowers.
She said tipsy.
This is Gara, flowering, whirling butterflies is what we used to call them. And if you actually kind of take a look at the flowers, the way the stems come out, it looks like a butterfly. And in the wind, they're whirling, so that's kind of where they get their name.
Did you say those are drought tolerant?
Yes. This is an ornamental onion, or society garlic. It has purple flowers. This is one of the animal-resistant plants, and if you kind of take a whiff of this, it does smell like garlic. So I don't know if you put it right next to your chair, unless you really like garlic. This grouping here, I'm going to mount the camera. This is absolutely gorgeous, and I love the way it's set up with that. This is actually an Echinacea, which is a cross between a Rudbeckia or black-eyed Susan and the Echinacea. So they've kind of put both flowers together, so it blooms a little bit longer than your black-eyed Susans, and it is very drought tolerant. And it's a great late summer, fall flower.
How big are out there?
This guy's going to get about 2, maybe 3.5, 3 feet. This is one that in a couple, 2 or 3 years, you can definitely divide, along with like your echinaceas and your Shasta daisies. All those stuff can be divided.
How about rabbits, deer, and how they
Okay, here's the deal. They are on the resistant list because they do have fuzzy leaves. Most things don't like that on their tongue. However, I have seen rabbits munch on them. So kind of be careful with animals. Know what kind of animals you have. A lot of times you can actually prevent animals in that area if you strategically put some rosemary or some lavender, society garlic, things also in that space where they're not going to like it. You can also use some deterrents. Repelsol does a really good deterrent. You can also use some chili powder. I mean, there's a formula if you have animals and stuff that you can use some chili powder. It's a cayenne pepper derivative that is a spray that gives them that hot where they don't like it. Usually
spray that right up the leaves and it won't hurt them.
read the directions. Some of them you can, some of you can't. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing. The autumn sage, this is the one that I was talking about. This is one of my favorite plants. It's so versatile, comes in so many different colors. This year we saw coral, which is a bright orangey red color. It was spectacular. There was also a light salmon color. It comes in the pink, reds, purples. Their hot lips is red and white. So there's a lot of different colors in there so to fit any scheme. These guys bloom from April to November when it really gets cold. Most of them stay in that 2-foot range. The hot lips I know can get 4 to 5 foot. So kind of read the tags to figure out which one you want and where you're going to place it. When you're planting your garden, that's another thing to kind of keep in mind when you're shopping. You want to make sure that the tall stuff gets in the back and your shorter stuff is in the front. Stuff like just went away. Yarrow. Some of that, the leaves are really short and stays narrow, but the flowers get a little bit taller, so once you cut it back, it is a shorter plant. So kind of keep that in mind when you're placing things. Delphiniums, they need to be staked, they're really tall, but when you cut them back, you probably won't even see them. So kind of put them kind of off to the side or, in the back where they can be highlighted that way. Ornamental grasses are a great way to give you some height with low maintenance. They give you movement when the wind blows. They're also pretty, it's a sign of fall. They're pretty drought tolerant. So watering here, usually when you're newly planted plants, you're going to water twice a week. Obviously, that goes with a little bit of common sense. So we're getting rain every day. You're not going to need to water twice a week. Some people get rain, some don't. So it's what we tell you to do is kind of, it all depends on your area. Some of us have decomposed granite. We have really well-drained soil. Some of us have clay where it just compacts so it just stays soggy all the time. So it kind of depends on where area you are on how much you're going to water. I would recommend everybody buy a water meter. When you put those in, you want to go all the way down to get the right amount, so you know exactly how much moisture you have in the ground. I used to use my finger all the time, but I always check it in the morning, and the soil's cold, so you can't really tell whether it's wet or not. Also, a piece of rebar works really well. Pop it in the ground. It's got those little curlicues on it, where it'll bring out soil with it, and you can kind of feel what that soil's like at that point. The last thing, or one of the things you also want to keep in mind is pay attention to your gardens. We have disease and pests, obviously, here. Certain times of the year, we have certain pests that kind of come in, take over, and if you're not paying attention, they can do some serious damage. Aphids are one of them. Usually we get aphids in the spring. We'll also get some in the mid to late summer, and sometimes in the fall. Blister beetles are one of those that can just come in and they can decimate an area in a matter of hours. So always have an arsenal with insecticide and a fungicide so you can keep on top of stuff. Powdery mildew is one, especially this time of year when the humidity comes up and the heat is still on. You'll start seeing that. Roses, bee balm is notorious. The coreopsis will get it. So just kind of keep an eye out on it because if your plant turns white, you're going to lose it. So if you kind of keep on top of it, start spraying early, you'll keep that from happening. The other thing our monsoon timing is going to bring on is weeds. Now is a great time to get the pre-emergent on. This is a product that goes down granularly. So a spreader will work to spread it out. This will not harm your existing plants. It'll work on gravel side, on the side of your areas, mulch. You can put it in your mulch. The way this works is it keeps seeds from germinating. So the weeds that are already up, it doesn't kill. But any seeds that are down there, grass seeds, and you'll notice once we start getting moisture that they're going to start popping up like crazy. So get this down now. It creates a barrier so the seeds don't germinate and pop up. And with the moisture that we get from the monsoon, it really makes it work really well.
What's the name? What's that?
Huh? It's turf and ornamental grass stopper.
Will that take care of weeds that grow in between the pavers? Because those are hard to.
Yeah, her question was, does it work on weeds that grow through pavers? Yes, as long as they're not already existing there. If they're existing, you'll need to spray.
So if you see them, you're too late.
Yes, that's why you put it down before they pop out.
Would you put that in a watershed area?
Her question was, would I put it in a watershed area? I wouldn't, no, because it's just going to wash away.
Is it pet safe?
Her question was, is it pet safe? Once it's dry, it is. So if you put it down and it rains, let it dry and then you can let your pet it. July is a great time to get fertilizer down. We fertilize here quite often because of our soil is so high in pH. Also, there's not a lot of nutrients in our soil that we have. So we put this down. Oh, I gotta get this up. So this is a sign-up sheet. So if anybody, you sign your name and your email, you'll get a copy of this program. And if you have any other, are you going to send anything else out?
Yeah, there'll be a bunch of handouts.
So there'll be a bunch of handouts and stuff that you'll get this. So fertilization we do on the major holidays, so Easter, 4th of July, Halloween, and New Year's Eve. So for all your deciduous stuff, the things that lose your leaves, that'll die back to the ground, you will fertilize 3 times a year, and that'll be the Easter, 4th of July, and Halloween. Evergreens get that New Year's Eve dose. And it's, like I said, it's really important, and now is a great time to get that out because the monsoon's going to wash it in. Ken always says we're lazy gardeners here because we just like to throw it out and be done with it. You don't have to work it in. If you want to, absolutely, but you don't have to. It just washes in every time you use your drip system or it rains. Humic. This is one of the products we've been pushing for the last couple of years, and it's an awesome, highly compacted compost. It's a soil activator, so it just kind of reconditions your soil. I live in Dewey, and the first few holes that I planted never saw an earthworm for the first year I was there. And then we started using this, and it was like, wow, I have worms. It brings in the earthworms. It helps with the mycorrhizae, which is a good bacteria that helps the roots intake the nutrients and stuff. So if you're having troubles with your plants, this is a great product to get down. Also, those folks that have compost bins, this helps activate that. So great product. Get it down now. Let the monsoons wash it out. These are the 2 products that I told you should always keep in your arsenal. Triple Action is not the usual product that we tout. We usually use the multi-purpose spray. which works really good. We're currently out of it. Hopefully we're in it soon. Triple Action has the same ingredients as our multi-purpose, except that it also has neem oil. So neem oil helps with fungal issues, so it's kind of a 3-in-1 spray. That being said, with our temperatures the way they are, you want to be really careful about when you spray this. You want to spray late in the evening so the plant has time to absorb it. You don't want to do this ever in the heat of the day, or you're going to dry your plants. This works on aphids, spider mites, and thrips, all sorts of bugs.
Did you say to do it in the evening?
I did.
Okay.
Typically, we preach on doing it in the mornings, but because of the temperatures and the oil-based product, we want to make sure that we don't fry our plants. If you are an early riser and you get up 5 o'clock, you might be able to get it on and let it absorb before it heats up in the day. But we've been getting so hot early, that's why we recommend it in the evening. All of these products come in a concentrated version. So if you do have sprayers at home, make sure that you have one sprayer for herbicides and one for this type of thing. You never want to mix it. If there's any herbicide in and you put that on, you're going to toast your plant. So always have one for herbicides and one for this type of stuff.
Michelle, I just had somebody on the website ask about grasshoppers.
Grasshoppers. We all have grasshoppers, and they're getting bigger as time goes on. We just got a new shipment of Nolobait. Nolobait is a biologic product that you put down. It actually will attract them, so you don't want to put it in the middle of your perennial bed. Kind of keep it on the outside. And then they eat it, and it messes with their digestive system, so and then they'll die. If they don't die immediately and they have babies, their babies have it too. So it kind of works generational, and that works really well. If they're hopping around, you can hit them with this because it's a contact killer. The multi-purpose spray works really well on grasshoppers. But this will work too. 38 is another product that'll work, but it has a very high percentage of that permethrin, which is in this too. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Do you have any helpful hints or recommendations for people who are only here, say, 6 months of the year, in terms of perennials and other things?
So her question is do we have helpful tips for people that are only here 6 months out of the year? So you're the type of people that really need drought tolerant stuff. You are the ones that I recommend yuccas to. Succulents, the red yucca, the brake lights yucca, all of those will do great for you. And they have great flowers.
And they go through the winter?
They will go through the winter. If they're newly planted, for you, I would definitely plant in the springtime. So you have time to establish stuff a little bit better. You still need a little bit of moisture in the wintertime. So if you have a gardener, I would have them check once a month to just make sure things are moist. We have months where we don't, winter's kind of our driest period, except for last winter. We had a lot of rain last winter, snow and everything else. The year before, we were super dry. We didn't see anything from September till January. We got 3 inches in January, we got a little bit in March, and that was it. So it's really important to winter water. But you can do it as long as you have somebody on top of it, or come up once a month, you know?
Right, I can come up with a couple, I wondered about frequency.
Yeah.
And I do have everything on drip, but we do have landscapers that turn it off in the winter so the pipes don't freeze.
Yeah.
So again, a couple times a month might be sufficient.
Yeah, and her question was, is her landscapers turn her system off, which most of them will, because we do get cold. So winter watering is something that you don't water like you do in the summer. Your plants that lose their leaves are pretty much dormant. The idea of that is we're just kind of keeping that root base moist. We don't want it to dry out. So twice a month, on everything that you plant, you're going to water thoroughly. And that's the same with trees, shrubs, and all that. Twice a month is plenty, and that'll keep them healthy and growing. Your evergreens are really important to water twice a month. Yes, ma'am.
I have an area that I want to cover with board because it's really up some soil. And so I want to find that plants.
Sure. Her question was, she has an old board, an old board that's kind of on a hillside, and she wants something vining that's perennial. Do you want it evergreen, or does it matter if it loses its leaves?
Doesn't really matter.
Okay.
I'd rather have evergreen.
Okay, so there is a couple of vines that stay green throughout the year. The honeysuckle, the Hall's honeysuckle is a great one. It stays green all year. The trumpet vine will lose its leaves, but it is pretty and it has flowers. The hummingbirds love it. Vinca, if you have shady spots, that's more of a ground cover, but they work really well. Yeah, so Vinca would work perfect for you.
Speaking of Vinca, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How much sun can Vinca take?
Her question was about Vinca and how much sun it will take. Usually it'll take 3 or 4 or 5 hours of morning sun. It's just that hot, intense afternoon sun that it really kind of doesn't like. Yes, sir.
Grass. You can cut it down.
Absolutely. His question was, yeah, his question was about the grasses and kind of how to take care of it. Grasses are one of those things that are gorgeous in the fall. We like to see the wind blow. They give us some winter interest. Best time to cut grasses down is early spring, so the end of March, early April, cut it back. And usually you're going to go down about 6-8 inches. If you tie a string around it tight, you can just take a hedge trimmer and just cut it off. It'll kind of fall over in a clump and you just toss it in there. Usually about 8 inches to 12. Yeah, it kind of depends on the type of grass that you've got. Pampas grass can go the same way. And it, like I said, it's really easy if you tie your grass up first before you cut it. It'll save you a whole lot of cleanup later. Yes, ma'am.
These perennials will make it through the winter with some
Correct.
snow.
Correct.
I live up in Green Creek at like 6,200 feet. Will it still?
Her questions were, do most of these perennials overwinter? She lives in Green Creek at 6,200 feet. Yes, they will. So Green Creek is probably a little bit closer to a 6 than a 7. That being said, all of these perennials are actually a zone 5 or 6. So the lower the zone number on the tag is, the more cold it can take. So when you go to do your fall cleanup, I kind of just cut things back a little bit. Take out the dead, kind of clean up the leaves that have fallen and the debris that's around my beds. But I kind of leave the plant intact because that the stems and stuff will protect, snow, the frost. It gives it a little bit of extra protection. And then in the springtime, you can, really cut it back. Same thing with roses, trees, shrubs. I always wait until spring because you always, January and February are usually our coldest months. And if you cut them back in the fall, sometimes you'll get dieback and then you have to cut them again. So just kind of clean it up. If you have dead stuff or broken stuff, you can go ahead and cut that off. But don't really whack it back until springtime. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed you have some butterflies. Now, I have butterflies, but I don't have any butterflies.
I'm sorry.
But I don't have any butterflies. How?
I'm sure they're on their way because if you walk down in the center there are butterflies galore over there. And the other day I saw my first monarch, so I was kind of excited about that. So the more flowers that you bring into your yard, the more butterflies and things that you'll have. They'll just start because of the scents. If you haven't smelled this butterfly bush, take a whiff of it. It's really, really pretty and it's really fragrant. So that's what they smell and that's what brings them in. Isn't it?
Probably water nearby.
Absolutely. Water nearby always helps because the bees, the butterflies, they all like that water. So, yeah. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Can any of these be planted in a big pot, like on a deck?
Absolutely. Her question was, will any of these survive in a pot? Yeah, they will. And the nice thing is that where we're at, usually we don't get super, super cold where they get frosted all the way around. I always recommend a nice sturdy ceramic pot works the best. But if you have terracotta, even plastic, just kind of keep an eye on those temperatures. If we drop below 20, you might throw a thing of insulation and wrap it up in plastic around it. Or just throw a blanket over the whole thing. Just because sometimes we do get cold. I mean, last winter we were down to 5, for several days, which is kind of unusual for us.
Where do
Thank God for
adobe pots fall on that?
Adobe pots.
Yeah. I brought them with me.
I'm not familiar with those. I do know like terracotta clay, they break down.
No, these don't.
Okay.
They're heated in like 2,000 or 3,000 degrees.
And then it's kind of the way the ceramics are too. They're specially fired. It's special clay, so it can withstand that freezing and heating that we go through here.
With the autumn sage, and they sprout, and have their blooms, and then they rather don't bloom as much anymore. Would you cut those off or leave them until next spring?
Her question is can you clean them up? Because sometimes you'll just get this long stem on these. Absolutely. Cut this off, and it just inspires new growth.
Okay.
It also kind of compacts your plant a little bit, and you'll get better blooms off of it, for sure. Yeah. Anything else? If you guys have questions, once we're done, please don't hesitate to come and ask me. I think we're through. Thank you.